Shalom guys, it's the end of the Sabbath day. Getting close to the end anyway. Beautiful sunset over the mountains. Ooh, so beautiful. So I normally only do the evening Sabbath teaching, the Erev Shabbat teaching, and then I do the Sabbath hike. But I've been asked by two different subscribers to do a teaching on the head coverings, and so I felt like that was confirmation to do one. So I wonder if we can get the big mountains. Oh yeah, look at that. So I'm going to do a brief teaching on head coverings as the Shabbat is closing out tonight. Essentially a head covering, people have asked me about this hat. This is 100% linen, a men's head covering. Men's head coverings are different from women's. Women's are usually long and flowing, and the man's head covering is more like this. If you go to the Torah, the Levitical priests always wore head coverings when they did temple service. And in Revelation 1, it says we're all priests and kings. Now, some people will bring up 1 Corinthians 11 and say, wait a minute, Daniel, Paul says clearly men should not wear head coverings when they're praying or prophesying. So that's actually not what Paul is saying. Remember, Paul was a master Torah scholar. He was trained by Gamaliel himself. So he certainly knew Torah backwards and forwards, both before he was converted and after. And he never taught against Torah. After he was converted and followed Yahshua, the Jewish Messiah, he continued to teach Torah, and they falsely accused him of opposing Torah. But in Acts, he makes it very clear in the book of Acts that he's never taught against Torah. In fact, he always encourages people to follow Torah because that brings us closer to Messiah. In 1 Corinthians chapter 11, he's dealing with a Messianic congregation in the city of Corinth. There's a lot of strange fire in Corinth. They had to get a lot of corrections. But in that specific chapter, if you actually go to the Greek manuscript of what Paul is saying there, and of course I think it might have even been originally written in Hebrew, but just going to the Greek behind the English there, you can see that what Paul is saying is that women are to wear long flowing head coverings when they're praying or prophesying, and men are not to wear these long flowing veils, because what was happening in Corinth is there was cross-dressing going on, a lot of cross-dressing, and so Paul was trying to clear that up within the Corinth assembly itself. Cross-dressing, of course, is a violation of Torah. It says that a woman shall not wear what pertains to a man and vice versa. So a man's to wear a men's head covering and a woman a long flowing whenever we pray or prophesy. This is further confirmed when Paul says that if we overcome, if we continue to love Yah with everything in us and we overcome, then when we enter eternity, we will inherit a crown of salvation. That means we're going to have a head covering on our resurrected body for eternity. And it's further confirmed when you go to Revelation chapter 19. When Yahshua, the Messiah of Israel, returns in power and glory from the sky, what does it say? It says that the Messiah of Israel will have many crowns upon his head. Of course, Rabbi Greg has a really good teaching about that too. He talks about how every crown that you get, it shows the kingdom that he's conquered. And of course, when Yahshua returns, he has conquered all the kingdoms of the world. So that's why he's wearing all these different crowns. But he has a head covering. A crown is a head covering. Every king and priest has a head covering all through Scripture. So even Yahshua, in his resurrected body, as he returns from power and glory from the sky, no longer a carpenter, but now a king, he will have a head covering. So since our resurrected bodies will have head coverings, and since Yahshua himself will have head covering, why not us? Why not us having a head covering? It's a powerful thing when you do it, especially for women. There's a scripture in 1 Corinthians 11 that says when a woman covers her head with that long feminine veil, when she prays or prophesies, she has power over the angels. Women can be easily deceived by fallen angels. That's what happened in Adam and Eve. Adam wasn't deceived, he willfully disobeyed, but Eve was deceived. But when a woman wears a head covering when she prays or prophesying, it's an act of obedience that causes these fallen angels to stand back. So head coverings can be very, very powerful. I prefer the 100% linen because that's what the priests actually wore. Linen is a very healing fabric. If you know anything about how fabrics heal and the energy levels they exude, linen is probably one of the most healing fabrics for your body. Okay, so at the end of 1 Corinthians 11, or toward the end, Paul says, look, if anyone's going to be contentious over this issue, drop it. There's more important things. So I'm not going to raise a contention over this issue, but I would encourage you to study this issue out more thoroughly yourself, because ever since I chose to wear a head covering and I learned about it, my mind is much more clarified. I can think much more clearly. I don't nearly have as much problems with devils messing with my mind. And look, I know not everyone agrees with this. Even the pastor I recommend doesn't wear a head covering. But I do think it's a commandment. I think it's in Scripture. I think it's a principle from Genesis all the way through Revelation. And I believe the Bible never contradicts itself. So I hope this helped. Okay, Shabbat Shalom from Alaska here, everyone. I'll leave everyone with just the last little look of this beautiful sunset that we're having. You can probably hear the ocean. Shabbat Shalom from Juneau, Alaska, guys.